Hello everyone. So as we all know, we are doing a series on how to write for premier journals. We have already covered what are premier journals, why manuscript fail, what are the expectations whenever we talk about these premier journals, what are the expectations of editors, reviewers, and all these premier journals, what they look forward to. We have already discussed that. Coming to the anatomy of the article, we are section wise covering it, and today we have just now finished in the previous video how to clearly present the findings, and today in this video we are going to discuss how to write the discussion in the research article whenever we are writing an article for a premier journal. Then we'll be covering conclusion, references, and appendices in our upcoming 3 videos in this entire playlist and this entire series of how to write for premier journals. So let's have a look what are the expectations whenever we talk about uh, discussion. So, discussion of an article is where the authors spell out the noteworthy implications of their study for theory and practice. So, now it is very, very important, like what we did in methodology and in the findings, whatever methodologies we have stated in the methodology sections, how we are going to do, what is the research rigor. We have done that in methodology, followed by the section comes of findings, wherein we talked about all the details of data analysis, presenting the findings in terms of what all tables are involved, what all hypothesis testings are done, what hypotheses are accepted, what all not accepted. So everything we do in findings. Coming to the discussion finally, we always start with the research problem, right? And how it is going to contribute to the theory. We have already covered that in theoretical underpinning. Now, again, we drive back and we connect again to how our findings, specifically the findings, contribute to the theory and practice space. So, we must have already highlighted what theory is we are tapping in, how we are building in. But again, critically related to our findings, specifically related to our findings, we share that what theories and how we have built on these theories and how we are contributing in the practical space. This is crucial section as the readers, especially the editors and reviewers, will evaluate whether the article has delivered its promise or not. Remember, when we start and writing the introduction, we share that this is the background, that's wherein the gap is existing. This is the research objective which I am tapping in, and we promise with theoretical underpinning, and this is how our article is going to address a problem. Now we promise that we in the beginning that we are going to address a problem. Now in the end we discuss whether we fulfill our promise or not. So a promise of novelty, a promise of utility. Novelty means whether our research article is very, very novel, new, very, very urgent to address in the current context. All these things whether we are able to do, and utility, whether it is useful, whether the findings are useful or not, how relevant they are. So what contribution, what value the research is contributing to. Now if you remember, we have already discussed in one of our previous video that what exactly we, when we were discussing the final criteria of shortlisting the research topic, if you remember, we discussed about foundational research and translational research as expectations. So in the final criteria of when, how to choose the best topic for our research article, we have discussed the final criteria, if you remember. And in this finer criteria, R was representing relevance, and whenever we talked about relevance of a research topic, we discussed about in the previous video. You will when you will go back into the playlist, the video's name is um, how to shortlist the research topic, or how to choose a research topic for your research. So we discussed the final criteria there, and in that we discussed about foundational research and translational research. That's wherein we again in the discussion we highlight that point. So always remember that a good discussion can be developed by highlighting the following points. The first is theoretical implications. So we have to always add a subsection in our research article. What is the theoretical implications? Are the findings in line or in opposition of the current literature, current theories? How the findings advances and contributes the theory in this area? It can sometimes support the previous research, sometimes it contradicts. So how these findings are contributing, very very important is contributing to the theory. Then comes the practical implications, especially in context of business management researches. We always add one section how these findings advances and contributes to practice in this area, how they help the businesses, how they help the policymakers, how they help the managers, how they help the governments. So, how in practice they are relevant. So, very, very important. And what are the recommendations? What do you feel? We, as a researcher, are working in that field. We have done the entire research project. What are our recommendations based on the findings? What do we feel? How the communities, practitioners, policymakers will get benefited, and how the research contributes practically on ground to all these stakeholders and to all the structure and processes wherein our problem was trying to tap in the space. So this is very very important. Now there are a few uh, ways as well, like in elsewhere they say that when we write a discussion we have to introduce the study, summarize the main findings, interpret the results. Yes, we do that, we have just discussed, but majorly we focus on theoretical and practical implications. I have added this recommended reading if you want to read in detail how we should write a discussion. But we are already covering major of the points. Now let's have a look practically a few papers wherein let's see how those papers are discussing and writing in the discussion in their sections. So let's have a look. So again, let's tap in some other A category journals. So we already have covered in the previous video Journal of Business Research. In the same domain, if I think of some other journal, probably Technological Forecasting and Social Change. Let me just check this. Yes. So let's have a look at this. This is also an A category journal. Let's have a look how they write the discussion chapter. So again, I'm tapping in and try to tap in and understand the recent research articles published by the journal, especially the open access one, because I can't access the closed access papers. Let's have a look. So now looking at the paper got published recently in 2026. So let's see how they are writing the discussion. Okay. So hypothesis, then methodology, exploratory analysis, regression analysis. Here comes the discussion. So I think they were discussing the results. So results were discussed separately, analysis wise. So regression analysis, followed by before that they have explained exploratory analysis. So that's how they have presented the findings, and now they are covering the discussion part. Where is that? Here is the discussion. So in the discussion they are first, can we see interpretation and contributions, right? So in research discussion, what we focus on, the contributions, whether they are theoretical contributions or theoretical contributions and implications or practical implications. So first they are doing that, then they have divided it with the second part, that is policy implications. So that's how they have tried to tap in. First is interpretation and contributions and policy implications. So that's how they have done in discussion. Let's have a look at some more. They must have discussed, separately for theories and everything, but that's how they have done and divided the sections. Let's have a look at some more papers. Probably this. Let's have a look here how they have done. So again, on research article, discussion of results. So they have combined the discussion of results. Let's have a look. All right, so here we can see that they are discussing the results here, and they are calling it as a discussion. However, usually we write, whenever we write a discussion, we discuss the contributions there, but they have made a separate section for contributions. So can we see they have divided and named it as theoretical contributions, and then managerial contributions. So this is also one of the way we can do that, but usually we name, when we discuss the result, we either call it as the findings or the results section. And whenever we talk about the contributions, we usually call it as a discussion. Let's have a look at a few papers so that we can actually tap in how this journal actually accepts, because it varies journal to journal, but ideally in discussion we share the theoretical and practical implications. Let's have a look at some more papers from the journal. See, here they are clearly indicating results, that is the findings, followed by the discussion. Can we see no standard pattern? So in the discussion again, they are indicating theoretical contributions, and they must be followed by the managerial, that is practical implications. And they have also taken up the limitations and avenues for future research. So now this is a very critical thing, because sometimes the limitations, in fact most of the times the limitation sections and the future research directions are given in the next section, that we call it as a conclusion. So it varies journal to journal, but standard style is that we include this in the conclusion section. But coming to the point which we are discussing over here, that is discussion, let's note that under the discussion we should always be discussing theoretical and managerial implications. So I hope with these examples we have got an idea that what exactly and how a discussion should look whenever we talk about writing the discussion for premier journals. It should be including theoretical and practical implications. I have also attached in the description all the recommended readings, and at the bottom of every slide I have indicated the sources which I have referred to.